we can. I know darn well we can work it out. Oh, yes, we can. I know we can. Yes, we can. And why can't we if we want to? Yes, we can. I know we can make it work. I know we can make it if we try. Oh, yes, we can. Yes, we can. Great gosh, almighty. Yes, we can. I know we can. We can make it, y'all.
Thank you for joining me, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Yes We Can with Pastor Sherman D.Manning. Today I have a fabulous guest. This is a woman. Her name is Betty Ann Waters. Take a look at this. They made a movie about her life. Conviction. Take a look right now.
Kenneth Waters, you're under arrest for the murder of Katarina Brown.
Are you out of your mind?
We find the defendant guilty, Your Honor.
We'll get you out, Kenny! You hear me?
When her brother was convicted of murder,
I can't spend the rest of my life in here.
Betty Ann Waters began an impossible 18-year struggle to set him free.
I'm gonna stop by trying to get a BA after I finally take the stupid GED test. And after that, I'll apply to law school. But you just have to promise me that you'll never give up.
I don't really have time for a friend right now.
We're gonna be friends, because we're the only ones in class who've been through puberty.
My brother Kenny, he's been in prison for 12 years, life without parole.
Wow.
I'm gonna find a way to get him out.
Mom? Oh, my baby sister passed the bar! I understand, but you have to sit down. I'm so proud of you. This woman actually went to law school to save her brother.
He's our only client. How long will it take you to make yourself look like a lawyer?
You're talking about evidence that's 16 years old.
You know that caught Nancy Taylor had it out for Kenny. They lied, saying they had all this evidence. You put an innocent man in prison.
I am sorry you have wasted your life on this.
You gotta move on. It's over, honey. I'm never getting out of here.
You're innocent.
You sure about that?
There is one thing we haven't tried yet.
If we can DNA test the murderer's blood, it'll prove Kenny's innocent.
Not doing it.
That's what we've been waiting for.
It's gonna test positive. I'll find a way. I don't trust them.
You do it, or I'll kill you. That's your sister and your lawyer talking.
This fall,
DAs don't like to admit they put an innocent person in prison.
I did not come this far after all this time.
experience the extraordinary journey
There are forces greater than you, and you may not win.
of how far we go
Time for you to start living your life.
This is my life.
to fight for our family.
You guys would do this for each other, right?
If Ben tried to go to law school for me, I'd die an old man in prison.
You'd do it for me?
I would.
So yes, they made that movie about her life. The movie is called Conviction. If you haven't seen it, you should go see it. Get it on your phone or your computer. But I have Betty Ann Waters with me today. Betty Ann Waters is a woman who went to law school to get her brother out of prison. He went to prison for a crime she did not believe he committed. He got a life sentence in prison. She had a GED and she went to law school and got her brother out. Betty joins me right now. Take a look at this. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me. I am very excited today to have attorney Betty Ann Waters with me. Ms. Waters, do me a favor and tell me who you are.
Who am I? My name, as you said, is Betty Ann Waters, and I am an attorney, but I don't actually practice a lot of law. I mostly, the reason why I became an attorney, of course, is because of my brother's wrongful imprisonment.
Yes.
So the only lawyering I do is pro bono for the Innocence Project.
Okay. Now take me back. So your brother is wrongly convicted of murder and he receives a life sentence in prison. How did you feel when you first heard the verdict?
I really could not believe the words guilty because I sat through his whole trial. I knew his case. I knew everything. And myself and I'm one of nine children, and my mother were all in court.
Right.
And we planned on taking him home that day. Like, we thought he was coming home.
Right.
We thought for sure the jury would see that he was innocent.
Mm-hmm.
So we were more than devastated.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know from reading that your brother had a few minor brushes with the law, which lots of people have every day, but it doesn't make them a murderer. But what I wanted to know was this your first intimate dealings with the judicial system in this kind of, on a case this serious? Was this your first time having a family member accused of something this serious?
Well, let me say that my brother was not he's been in trouble before.
Right.
And nothing that serious, of course. And when he was in trouble, my brother was always the kind of kid that told the truth. So he never had to have a trial because if he did something wrong, he admitted it and took his punishment. So this is actually our first trial ever. And he was innocent. So everything was really unexpected.
And so when did you decide? Because this story, although it's been around a while and a movie has been made, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but it is just unheard of that a sister goes to law school to get her brother out of prison. When did you decide, I'm going to law school and I'm going to get him out? When did you make that decision?
Well, actually, it was my brother that made the decision because 5 years into his sentence, of course, we had appeals attorneys, and we really thought they would find the truth and he would be set free. And he exhausted his appeals. And after 5 years, no, actually about 3 years, he exhausted his appeals. And I remember waiting for him to call me. He would call me almost daily, and he did not call me. And I was trying to get a hold of his lawyer, and come to find out, my brother, after losing that last appeal, tried to commit suicide. And so when I finally did get to talk to him, it was about a month that went by, and I was actually going crazy not talking to him. And we were on the phone, and he said to me, of course, I'm upset with him. At the same time, you don't know how to feel.
Right.
And I'm feeling that, I don't want him ever to do that again. But how do you get mad at somebody under the circumstances? But that's when he said to me, Betty Ann, the only way I'm going to make it in here is if you go to law school. I know you will prove my innocence, and you'll help me get free. Otherwise, he's not going to make it in there. So I said, okay, you understand, Kenny, that I have a GED, and law school is a long way from a GED.
Right.
And he said, I don't care. If you tell me you'll do it, I will stay alive and wait.
Wow.
So that's how it happened.
Wow. And so having a GED, which is not a lot of formal education,
No.
were you intimidated at all when you first signed up to go to law school? How intimidated were you?
Oh, yes. Well, I had to go to college. So, I was intimidated at first. I mean, but, I took it day by day. And did I ever think, okay, I'm going to do all this and get to law school? Not necessarily.
Right.
But I did think that if I just took one step at a time, I would keep my brother alive.
Wow.
And maybe we'd find something in the meantime that could help, prove his innocence.
Wow.
So that was my goal, just to keep him alive and take one step at a time.
So sort of in the back of your mind, you had the idea that, hey, maybe while I'm in law school or even before I get there, something will come up and we can get him out and I won't even have to complete law school. Was that sort of the thing?
Absolutely. I was hoping that. And as a matter of fact, the closer I got to law school, of course, the more nervous I became.
Right.
And, having to get into law school. But I did, like I say, I took one day at a time and did it. And now I'm in law school, and that was the scariest point because now I only have 3 years law school. But if I don't find something, then what do I do?
Right. Wow.
So.
Well, inside story, Ms. Waters, I didn't tell you this. I don't like to do a lot of pre-interviewing with my podcast, as you can see. And I like to let nature take its course. And that's probably why the podcast is becoming even more and more successful. I was on the phone the other night with attorney Tom Mesereau, in my opinion, the greatest lawyer in the world. And he was saying to me, he watched a podcast and he says, I'm not believing that you just started doing this. He says, you're a professional, but that's just by the mercy and the grace of God. But the inside story that I was not going to tell you is that when I first read of your brother's exoneration, hear me clearly, I was sitting in a state prison, wrongly convicted myself. And I wept when I read about how you got your brother out. And when you're in prison for something you didn't do, you have all of these fantasies about how you're going to get out, this, that, and the other. And so in my mind, you were going to help get me out. And so that never happened. I never met you. But the bottom line is I did get out, and God has entirely turned my life around. I house the homeless. I feed the hungry. I have a church. I mean, I was pastoring before I even went to prison. But I said to myself, I am going to get Betty Ann Waters on this podcast no matter what. And I remember 3 or 4 weeks ago when I was able to find your phone number. I didn't know it was your cell phone number. I actually called you. And when I called you, I said, this is Pastor Manning, and you hung up. And I said, she probably gets a lot of prank calls. And so then I decided, you know what, I'm going to write her a letter. And then I wrote you a letter, and lo and behold, I looked up one Saturday morning, and there was a text from you. So your story has just been tremendously moving, and I do want you to know that it has inspired and is inspiring even now men across this country who are sitting in prisons for crimes they did not commit. What do you think about the judicial system now that you've seen what they did to your brother?
There aren't the right words to explain how I feel. I knew when my brother was convicted, even before that, I knew that the system was corrupt in so many ways. But after he was convicted, and even when I further looked into his case and found out why he was convicted and all the things that happened and all the evidence that was withheld, and I mean, he was convicted and all the people knew about it. The police department, the public, the prosecutor's office, everybody knew that he was innocent. They all withheld evidence.
Wow.
And I'm like, I didn't think that our system was like that, even though I knew it had some corruption, not to that extent. I did not know it until my brother was convicted. And we uncovered a lot of the evidence. Wow. And I'm still amazed at it because now I've met hundreds of people that have been wrongly convicted and exonerated. Right. And it sickens me.
Yes,
it really does.
I know how you feel. It will turn your stomach because, and I remember, here's a funny story, sad in some sense, but funny. I would have never gone to prison if I gotten Tom Mesereau. So I'm on the phone with Tom Mesereau. This is 25 years ago, Ms. Waters, and I say to him, he says to me, okay, preliminary hearings are very important, Pastor. I was a pastor at that time. He says, all I need is $5,000, and I've looked into your case already, and I can this, that, and the other. I said, okay. So I called a friend in Atlanta, Georgia, and had them to wire $5,000 to my friend here in Los Angeles, and my friend stole the money. And $5,000 was huge to me back then, and I didn't have any more money. So now it's trial time, and I don't trust the public defender. And keep in mind, I know I didn't do this. And so you've heard the old saying, he that has himself for a client has a fool for a client. And I made the foolish mistake of representing myself in Santa Monica Superior Court in a trial. I had an all-white jury, and of course, many people, in my opinion, most white people are not racist, but there were a few racists on that jury. And I tried the case, and I went to prison. And many, many years later, when I talked to Tom, I mean, he almost wept when he found out what had happened, that I'd gone to prison. And he said, I probably would have helped you anyway, but I was too embarrassed to call him back and say, hey, I don't have the money, someone stole it. But we've talked a million times since then, and I'm a firm believer that what you go through gets you ready for where you're going to. And so I think Providence wanted me to go through that in order to become the man that I am now, because if I had not gone to prison, Betty, I wouldn't be housing the homeless today. I would not be sensitized to the system the way that I am right now. Have you had any dealings with Barry Scheck since this case?
Oh, absolutely. I love Barry Scheck.
Okay.
We're good friends. We've been friends now over 20-something years. So he's my hero. He has called me his hero at times. Truly, he is my hero. The work that he does for people pro bono across this whole country, he makes you feel really good about lawyers. Yes,
he does. He does. And so what made you decide after your brother's case that you were not going to be a lawyer anymore? I don't in any way judge or criticize the decision, but how did you come to that?
Well, I didn't want to be a lawyer really to begin with. I think I did, believe it or not, as a teenager, I had ideas of it. And for me, at my age, being a teenager, I don't think girls really thought they could even be a lawyer. But I always thought about it. But it didn't happen, of course, for me. My education didn't go the right way. But, things happen. But now, I forget what your question was exactly.
I was asking you what made you decide after your brother's case that you were not going to be a lawyer anymore, that you were not going to actively go to court and try cases? I
guess because I never really wanted to. And being in the whole system is very disturbing to me.
Yes.
Because it just I have done a case. I was involved with another case that a person was set free, although they had to take a plea, which is another whole subject.
Thank you.
Even though he was completely innocent and should have been exonerated.
Right.
I spent years on that case, and he did get out. But just being in the courtroom with him as, a part of his defense team, very small part of it, made me so anxious inside in my stomach. It just brings back so many memories and of being in the courtroom in the way that I was in the courtroom that I don't enjoy it at all.
Okay.
know.
So that's the bottom line. It's not what, but you do volunteer with the Innocence Project, and you do some. What do? You read case files. What exactly do you do?
I did different things, like for the New England Innocence Project. I used to read case files and sat on a committee overseeing, looking at the cases. I've gone to legislatures and helped try to pass bills to change the system. And like I said, I did for 6 or 7 years work on a person's case that he was let free with a plea.
Right.
So I do whatever I can do here and there.
Right.
I speak. I go to different places. I do whatever I can do.
Okay. Mentioning speaking, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after this. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to be a part of this podcast, we need your help today. Go to yeswecanworshipcenter.org. Some of you watching are multimillionaires. You can send $20,000 today. You can send $50,000, $5,000, $500, whatever it is you can do. Help us do a couple of things. House the homeless through Yes We Can Worship Center. Feed the hungry through Yes We Can Worship Center. And keep this podcast going around the world. Everybody needs to know Betty Ann Waters' story. And the more help we get, the more work we can do. Let's get back to my interview with Betty Ann Waters. Take a look. Ladies and gentlemen, I have attorney Betty Ann Waters, one of my sheroes who decided to go. I'm just going to go to law school and get my brother out of prison, even though he has a life sentence. I mean, just that simple. And she went and she did it. You were mentioning that you do some public speaking. When are you going to be in Los Angeles so I can bring you by my church and let you speak to my people? Oh,
I would love to come to Los Angeles. I've been there a few different places over the years.
Okay.
But I would love to come.
Okay. I got a lot of lawyers who want to meet you. Interestingly, the chairman of my board of directors is a Jewish business lawyer by the name of John Eisen. And when I was telling him about you a couple of weeks ago, he said, "Oh, I already saw the movie." And I realized that after all, when the movie came out, I couldn't see it. And I realized after all of those years that I had not actually sat down and watched the movie. So I watched the movie last week. And this is a true story. About an hour after I watched the movie, you texted me again. And I said, wow, we must be in sync here. So tell me, what do you do every day now, Ms. Waters? What's your life like?
Well, I was semi-retired. I'm kind of looking for other things to do, probably with prisoners or innocent people or something, on those lines right now. But I actually was an owner of a restaurant until this year.
Okay.
So for 30 years, I owned a restaurant, and I just sold it. So
okay.
I'm out of that business.
Okay.
And, I'm looking
for other adventures.
Right
okay. Other adventures. And the sad part of the story, I have to go here. So after all of that long, tedious work that you did in securing the exoneration and the vindication of your brother. Now he is out of prison and he is home and he is living his life, and suddenly he had an accident. Tell us about that. What happened?
Well, first of all, he didn't just live his life. He was out for 6 months, and we did everything. We were on every morning show in New York.
Yes.
We were on Oprah.
Wow.
Which was a thrill of a lifetime.
Yes.
And my brother was he was in his absolute glory. He had the best life ever.
Yes.
Those 6 months, and he accidentally fell and hit his head and died of a brain injury.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know that had to be very tough, but at least he was enjoying his life at that time when that happened, and I'm just so glad that you were able to get him out. What do you think we need to do to fix the criminal justice system in this country? I asked all the lawyers, and I know you're not practicing, but you're still a lawyer. And I asked all the lawyers that I have on my show, and I have quite a few criminal lawyers. If you have not seen my interview with Tarek Kero, Khero, please watch that. And I asked him, what should we do to fix the system? And people always tell me, well, there are some very good public defenders out there, so forth and so on. And you and I both know that most of the ones who are actually good, Ms. Waters, are overloaded and underpaid, and they don't have the staff or the funding that the prosecution has. And in this country, when we keep yelling about you're innocent till proven guilty, but you got to go to jail, sometimes get $1 million bail, and you can't, you know, most people have to decide, am I going to try to bail out or get an attorney? I can't do both. So for the person who's might be watching us right now who's charged with a crime they didn't commit and they don't have a lot of money, what would your advice be to them?
Well, first I would say, as far as the public defender is concerned, my brother did have a public defender, and we called him years. Well, my brother was still in prison trying to get him out, and he didn't even remember his name. I'm like, well, he's in for life without parole.
Right. Wow.
He didn't remember his name. But on the other hand, I have my very best friend, Abra Rice, who was in the movie Conviction. She was played by Minnie Driver. Which, she's a public defender, and she's one of the best. If I had to be in court in Connecticut, which is where she works, and I needed a lawyer, I would pick her, you know, because I know she works really hard and really is involved in her job and cares about people.
What is her last name?
Hand, Rice, Abra Rice.
Okay. Yes.
Yep. She's in New Haven, Connecticut.
Okay. Right.
But so not all public defenders are bad. Definitely not her.
Right.
And however, I did have a bad one. And looking at the system and the way things worked, my brother, now that I look back, at the time I didn't know anything, of course, and lawyers don't like to talk to us lay people at the time, like to tell us what is really going on or what to expect or what we're even doing.
Right.
So when I figured it all out after becoming a lawyer, I realized that my brother was going to jail, because people were hiding evidence. The system is just wrong, and there aren't enough checks and balances for the system, for the police officers, for the prosecutors, everybody.
Right.
And there are things called best practices. I'm sure you've heard of those.
Yes.
And the Innocence Project definitely legislates for that, where all, even though confessions weren't a part of my brother's, he never confessed, but every interview is taped, you know, things like that. There are so many safeguards that should be easily put into place. That could help. But I think there just has to be more checks and balances on people. I mean, the main police officer in my brother's case was not really a police officer yet. She had not gone to the academy.
Oh, wow.
So who didn't check on that?
Right.
You know, we didn't know. She was called Officer Taylor.
Right.
And she didn't go to the academy until a year later, until she put another person that we know in prison.
It's not funny, but sad, but it's...
I know, right?
Geez.
You know,
she didn't go, wait a minute, she didn't even go to the academy until a year later after she put someone else.
Someone else who got out on my brother's coattails, actually. You know what I mean? Like, it was the same MO and the same police officer involved. It was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, she dated the chief of police and was a dispatcher there. And all of a sudden she's a police officer in a uniform.
Right.
And she's in a uniform because at the time they didn't have a lot of women police officers, and she would go on special cases like rape cases where a woman would want to talk to another woman.
Right.
So she was allowed to wear a uniform just for that purpose.
Oh, wow.
Like, she wore it whenever she wanted to.
Wore it whenever she wanted to.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And yeah, it was crazy. I couldn't believe it that she actually was not a police officer.
Wow. Well, while you're talking, I had an idea, and it's a novel idea. It may make a lot of sense. It may be nuts, but you got to start somewhere. I think one of the things we all should consider doing, perhaps a few of the guys who have gone to prison for crimes that they did not commit should get with people like you and Mr. Scheck and other attorneys who are intimately familiar with the corruption of the system. And maybe we should give some workshops and some seminars to police departments, as well as to prosecutors and to judges, because, as you said, the system can be extremely corrupt. And John Q. Citizen just does not believe that an LAPD officer or a police officer in Rhode Island or wherever is just going, oh, why are they just going to send you to jail for something you didn't do? Why would they do that?
Why would they do that, right?
And they don't understand that there are many motivations. Sometimes it's just to close a case. Sometimes it's because they feel that even though you didn't do this, you probably did something else anyway. Yep. So we may as well just hang this rap sheet on you. And that's just not the way the law is supposed to work. We're supposed to get the right person for the right crime, and he is supposed to be presumed innocent. And there have been cases where I know of where the cop, Ms. Waters, knew this guy didn't do it. But they were like, well,
This is one of those cases.
Yes.
This is exactly one of those cases.
Right.
They absolutely knew. They had the evidence and hid it.
Right.
I didn't find the evidence until after my brother passed away, and he was already out.
Right.
Because DNA evidence got him out.
Right.
But we later uncovered all the evidence of why he was imprisoned, and it was people withholding actual evidence, like fingerprints that proved it wasn't my brother.
And law enforcement.
Terrible.
And the average person looking on would think that's an aberration, that's an anomaly. But what I am saying is I happen to know for a fact that it's not as much of an aberration as many of us would like to believe. But the problem is we want to believe in democracy. We want to believe that our system is fair and just. And in many instances, it is just not. And so that is why I think we ought to get together, do some summit meetings, some workshops, some recording, something, because when prosecutors come into office who actually want to do justice, such as, I don't know how familiar you are with what's going on in Los Angeles, but we have George Gascon, who has tried to even the scales and really has done a good job at trying to make sure that people who didn't do it don't go, and that even the ones who did don't always go forever. And they came up with a recall. They tried to get him out of office because they want to lock him up and throw away the key. And I don't mind throwing away the key on someone who actually, in cold blood, murdered someone. Is can't be changed. But in a case like your brother's, I mean, I just think it's just unconscionable that this took place and that these kinds of things are taking place every day. I read one statistic by the Innocence Project that said they believe that more than 10,000 people per year are wrongly convicted of a crime. Have you ever heard that?
Yes, about 5%, I believe it's turning out to be right now. About 5% of people that are convicted are probably innocent.
Wow.
So that's a lot of people.
And how many do you think take pleas, as you were talking about earlier?
Tons take pleas. Like I just said, I know a person that spent 26 years in prison. Is the person I helped to get out.
Right.
He had to take a plea because they threatened to retry him, even though there wasn't any evidence to retry him. He was too afraid. He was afraid they would plant evidence. He was afraid that they would lie again. They would do things again. Right. And he took a plea. So there are tons of people that take pleas right off the bat too. Because death penalty for one, they're afraid of this, they're afraid of that.
Right.
If Massachusetts had the death penalty, he would have been dead.
Wow. Oh, that just gives me chills.
I truly believe that.
Yes.
Yes.
That gives me chills. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm almost out of time. I know Attorney Tom Mesereau, you're watching this. I know Attorney.
Hi.
Okay. When you come to L.A., I'll make sure you have lunch with Tom. I know Tom is watching. I know that Attorney John Eisen is watching. I know that Attorney Frank Gooch is watching. Probably Matt Omhofer. Many of you are watching. And I want to say to you all, and I know that Tom used to have a clinic, a criminal justice clinic where he did free pro bono work for others. But I think that all of us need to get together and we need to do something to make sure that what happened to Kenny Waters, I want to say his name, doesn't happen to other people right down the street from us here in Los Angeles, in Maine, in Vermont, or anywhere in this country. This is a great country. And you can't convince me that there's not that we can't tinker with this system so that we can actually get justice, because I talk about justice rolling down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. There's nothing just or right about what they did to Kenny Waters. And I just salute his sister, and I thank God for her that she did what she did to get her brother out. If you have not seen that movie, Conviction, ladies and gentlemen, Conviction, you have got to just go to YouTube or wherever you get your movies and go take a look at this very powerful and inspiring movie. And I want everybody to look forward to Betty Ann Waters coming to Los Angeles to Yes We Can Worship Center one day, hopefully soon. Ms. Waters, before we go, what would you like to say, parting words? Anything you want to say?
I want to thank you for letting me come on and to speak about this topic and my brother. And I just, I hope that people are listening. Again, every once in a while you get somebody that doesn't believe this can happen to anybody until they hear somebody else that you think, well, you know what, it really can. Like, I never believed it would have happened to my brother. Never. Like, and it does. It can happen to anybody. Now I've met hundreds of people, and every one of them and their families think that it wouldn't have happened to them either.
Wow.
So I just want people to be involved and really know what is going on. Is the only way to make change. Absolutely. And we can make it. We can do it.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
There's my theme.
Yeah,
so,
yes,
so you helped me. Thank you for that layup. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Attorney Betty Ann Waters, who got her brother out of prison. She's a soldier. She's a trooper. I salute her. I look up to her. I'm going to bring her to L.A. when I can. Ladies and gentlemen who are watching, please remember that we can make a difference in this country. We can fix this criminal justice system. We can do it together. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Gosh, your body.